Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome wherever you are in the world. This is Simon NoChaNoMa, and welcome to this week's Simon NoChaNoMa show. I'm currently waiting for my guest who is having trouble with her computer and her phone, and I'm getting feedback. Hang on. Right, if I mute myself there, that will be much better, and we can carry on with the show. Where was I? Yes, my guest has got up early in New Jersey, and I saw her briefly, but her laptop apparently is having audio issues. So we tried the phone, and it's not opening on the phone. And now we're going to try it with an iPad. We shall see. She should be here shortly, hopefully, and we shall get some music, and we shall talk all things Baroque. For those of you who are not familiar, I think most people are familiar with what Baroque music is. It's sort of classical music, but it predates classical. Classical is actually a term for refined music that appeared around about sort of the end of the 18th, middle of the 19th century, and before that, it was Baroque. Baroque actually comes from a Portuguese term, I think, for a misformed pearl, which is how it was a metaphor given by 19th century musicians for what they believed was the old style of music of the previous period. There were pearls of devices not connected. Hello, there we are.
Oh my God.
Welcome, Joyce.
Hi. Good morning. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. Technical difficulties are associated with this show and live streaming in general. I've just been explaining what Baroque is in my own. In the where the word comes from, why the 19th century composers decided to call it Baroque and all that business. So a little bit of cultural history straight off the bat. But you're here now, so
right?
You're the expert.
You probably know more than I do. It sounds like you have done more research.
Oh, that's what you do after work during the week.
Okay.
So, are you able to move to your harpsichord?
Yes, I'm actually. Well, the thing with my I guess I can turn my phone. So it's right here, but I was trying to find a way to pop up my phone, but my stand, I just couldn't find it. That's why it took me so long this morning.
Oh, right.
Oh, I had it. I just recently moved.
That's right.
So everything is in a different place. So the instruments are here, but I'll try my best. I can put it on the piano or something and explain.
Well, perhaps we could have just like an introduction. What would be an ideal introductory phrase, if you like, on the piano on the harpsichord, just to sort of. It's the Simon NoChaNoMa show. No, sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. Let me see this. Can you see? No. You can't really see the harpsichord.
Not really. You have to prop it on your sheet music, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and then you just have to play from memory.
Oh, you want me to play from?
Well, you're blocking your music with your phone. So,
can you?
Putting it? Oh, yes. Are you putting it on the music stand?
No, I don't. Oh, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, does it?
Down a bit. Tilt it a bit. Just don't drop it.
Like that?
Yes, that's perfect. Just
okay. Except my hand is holding it. That's why it's perfect.
Okay.
Let me go get the other stuff and see whether it makes any difference.
I shall just talk to the audience. Hello, Ellen. Hello, Sergeant Bilko. Sergeant Bilko, this is the beginning of the show. We started an hour later than usual because it's very early in the morning.
How's that?
That's good. That's good.
Okay, I'm not gonna move. So you want me to play something, right?
Please do. I shall put you on main screen and so that. Oh, wrong one.
So how long do you think this might be?
Well, just Of the intro, just a couple of minutes or so.
Yes. Oh, couple of minutes.
Yes, I mean.
I'm gonna play something everyone knows. See, like this is so spontaneous. But I happen to have this other piece because I was going to talk about it. But sure. Sorry, I'm not gonna do from memory because last night I tried and I was not memorizing the whole piece. So I should. But all right, can you? Is that good?
That's good. I shall remain quiet, and the audience is on the edge of their seats.
Okay, I am gonna take off my headphones and then look at you after I'm done.
Okay.
How's that? Okay.
That's good with me. Hooray! Hope you can hear my clapping. I'm clapping for the audience.
Oh, thank you.
Right. I'm familiar with that. I think one of our audience members has maybe guessed what it is. That was Toccata in C by Bach.
Very, very close. It's Prelude in C by Bach.
Prelude in C.
From the well-tempered clavier.
That's right.
Yeah. So very close, very close. I mean, I played a well-known piece, so everyone would know how it sounds like on the harpsichord rather than on the piano or other instrumentation.
This is it, because one of my guests, Ty from America, also from America, so he's up early as well.
Oh, okay.
He said it's almost like a harp, and he's not quite sure what it is. So this would be an ideal opportunity to actually, before we go deeper into introductions, just to quickly explain what is a harpsichord and how does it fundamentally differ from a piano.
Okay, so the harpsichord. We see this as a transitional keyboard instrument, probably from the late 16th century until mid 18th century or so. So it has about 200, 300 years of history, and this is the predecessor of the piano. And the main difference between the harpsichord and the piano is its sounding mechanism. I was going to take out, after I play, I was going to take out the jack that's inside this thing. That's what's plucking the strings instead of the hammer hitting down on the string like the piano. So it does have kind of a similar sounding mechanism like the harp, because it's like plucking rather than hitting on the string. So it has a more intimate sound. Yeah.
Well, that will be an ideal opportunity now, because I have an illustration of showing how the plucking system works, and you could maybe take your. I shall transfer to that. Whoop. There we go. I've got my buffs. I've got my nut, and I've got my jack. Can we see the buffs, the nut, and the jack, please?
Yes. Yes. Okay. I'll do my best. So this is. Oh, that's my home. So this is the jack rail. That's what we call it. And I can remove this. And can you all see? These are all the jacks. And then the harpsichord relies on this little thing. This is a plastic jack. This is, but by the way, it's not historical.
Oh,
this
right. I was going to say.
So this, I don't have an historical instrument in my place because I'm not loaded with money. So unfortunately, but this is what 90% of the harpsichords probably nowadays, they have. But this jack is from the 1970s. And I don't know, can you see this little white thing up top here?
That's the plectrum.
Yes. So the sounding all comes from here. So that's why harpsichord also sounds a lot quieter compared to the piano. Yeah, right. And I'm gonna do a little slow-mo if I can. Oh wow, this
right.
is
I'll put you on the
challenging.
main screen so that people can see. Yeah.
So let me find where. Can you see the moving note? So this is really little, and you only need a little bit force playing down, and it's the same volume because the plucking, well, there's a little differentiation, but the plucking, no matter how like forcefully you play or how softly you play it, the sound is almost the same. So we have to use different techniques to make dynamic contrasts compared to the piano. If you want to play louder, you just kind of play loud.
Hit harder.
Right, exactly.
If you hit harder on a harpsichord, nothing happens.
Right. Well, yeah, like there's very, very subtle differences, but like only the experts can hear. Oh, I was like, no, your attack was way louder. But like this is like microscopic level. So yeah.
So it's for the aficionados. I mean, it's the harpsichord aficionados would be able to tell whether you were, your nuances. But I mean, the general audience would have to deal with the flourishes. Right.
So we create contrast. I wasn't doing so much with the Bach piece because I was just really playing what's written on the note, written on the page. But usually we make dynamic contrast by playing more notes or playing notes that's not on page, and then just to make that illusion of, wow, this chord or this passage sounds louder than the other. Yeah.
So, I mean, one of my audience members mentioned the cembalo, which was the predecessor of the harpsichord.
No, cembalo. It's the same. It's just a different name.
Oh, right.
Cembalo is for, I think, Italian and also German. Cembalo is definitely German. And then French is clavecin. And then in Asia, it has different names too. I don't know in Japanese, but then in Taiwan, it's called dajianqing. Yeah, so it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
That's the new one on me. That's the first time I've heard. Oh, that's interesting. Dajianqing.
Dajianqing, yes.
Oh, okay. Right. Well, that was. If everybody now knows how a harpsichord works, where it comes from, but what we need to know now is you are a harpsichord tutor. Am I correct?
Tutor? You mean teach?
You teach people harpsichord.
Yes, some. That's part of my professional duties, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. This is sort of like, it's a side hustle.
Yes. Well, side hustle. I have a lot of side hustles. I don't have just one main thing. So yes.
But I mean, by way of introduction, I mean, you are at Princeton University.
Yes.
And what is your function there? Then if you're not
my function, right, it's a little bit complex than most people. So I am doing a PhD in historical musicology there, but before coming to Princeton, I actually had studied the harpsichord very, very seriously. So I have a DMA, meaning a Doctor of Musical Arts, so doctor for performers, but it's a very different kind of doctorate. Meaning we mainly play a lot, we perform a lot, and we write papers that's mostly based on performance, like what about the music, about performance practice, and things like that. So by the end of my study, I really knew that my degree was a byproduct of my passion. Like meaning,
Ah.
I wanted to study harpsichord, not so much as I wanted to get a doctorate in harpsichord. So that happened, and I said, okay, so what am I gonna do now? And most of the career outcomes, meaning teaching only harpsichord at universities, that was part of what I wanted to do, but not all I wanted to do. So I decided to go on and do a PhD. And as we all know, the PhD is the academic research degree where you read a lot and write a lot. So sorry, that's a little bit introduction for the Princeton part. So when I come to Princeton, I already have a doctorate, and they know that. So I actually do a little bit of teaching there too. So I do have my studio of actually piano students, because we don't really have a harpsichord studio, and the harpsichord studio is taught by someone else at the moment.
Ah, right.
And but what I do also is I do provide coaching and masterclass. I do teach some of the harpsichord, students there just a little bit, but not formally. But I do a lot of accompanying coaching on harpsichord. And in addition to that, my what I do is research. So I study 17th, 18th century music, and I also study one of my areas now would be like Taiwanese music as well.
Ah, right.
So, yeah.
That leads nicely into the fact that you are from Taiwan.
Yes.
Yes. So did you come to Princeton from Taiwan, or were you already living in the States and just?
Oh, I was living here for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. And you did your original study, your PhD. You did that in the States, or did you do that in Taiwan?
In the States, in New York.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Right.
So I've been on the East Coast for quite a bit of time. Yes.
So I mean, there is a great interest. I mean, you're coaching students now in harpsichord. Is there a steady interest in Baroque and harpsichord music? Would you say?
You mean overall, or
overall? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I would say at least when I also started, there was really kind of a wave of people wanting to study, and then it's very interesting. I don't know so much about the European context, but I do know in the States in the past 10 years, because I've been playing harpsichord for 10 years, there have been more graduate programs in early music. So not just harpsichord, but Baroque violin, period instruments. So something that is new is called the Juilliard 415. So Juilliard is known to be, one of the best music conservatories.
Music schools, yeah.
Yes. And also dance, of course. But they, I think they got a very generous endowment, and they started this historical performance program back in 2009. And many of my colleagues went on and go into that program. And so that's definitely one, because before them, I think there were just a few schools, and then so there are a lot of conservatories that now actually have a full-on graduate program in early music, and there are a lot of people going for and studying. I know that,
because it's really, I mean, Baroque music and the harpsichord in particular have only recently re-emerged as a popular form, or as a form of interest. I mean, before that, I mean, for the audience, it's, if you think of classical music, like I was saying at the beginning, that the classical period it differs from the Baroque period in that the classical started around the middle of the 19th century, early to mid 19th century. That was classical, but before that came the Baroque, and the people the composers in the classical period thought the Baroque was old-fashioned.
Yes.
And it kind of died a death and disappeared until actually it was rediscovered in the late 20th century. So I mean, I'm familiar with the European side of sort of the Baroque revival, because that's been going on since around about the 1980s in Europe. I don't know about academically, but certainly there were groups of people trying to recreate the sound using period instruments and so on from about the 1980s onwards.
Right. Yes. So I would just talk a little bit about, how Baroque music is different. So you actually mentioned some very interesting cultural phenomena. I'll articulate that too. So the Baroque music, it's different in the sense that just from a musical standpoint, we're way freer with our expression because really the score, the music, the written down music notation, like nowadays we think, oh, we have to follow whatever is written. But for the Baroque period, a lot of times is the composer, they're writing music as for function. They're writing this music, say, for procession during church service, where then they reuse the music for something else. So their intention, their composition intentions are already different from, like, say, Beethoven, because we know Beethoven is someone that's like, oh, I have to write this music that's the expression of me, and like that's his artwork. So this sense of what is someone's work, someone's composition is different. So in addition to that, back in the Baroque period, they really don't write down everything. They're like, okay, this is, if you're a well-versed musician in this style, you are able to ornament, or you can improvise. So that's one thing with our Baroque music that draw people like me that was a little bit rebellious and just wanted to do something different and say, I don't want to play the same piece, other 300 pianists are doing in the school and playing the same way. So you want to do something different. And with Baroque music, another thing is instrumentation is way freer back then, because it depends on let's say 17th century, because like even the orchestra, the distribution of instruments in the orchestra wasn't really crystallized until, I would say, the turn of 18th century. So in 17th century, it's like, okay, we're gonna play this piece. I need treble instruments. I need kind of a middle tenor instrument, and I need a few basses. Who's in? So they might say, okay, now I have two flutes and then two violins, or they can have four violins for the same part, and then whoever can join. So this is way freer. So I would tie them all these, like characteristics with why people are drawn into this. So so I would say the emergence actually came slightly earlier than most people notice. So over time, there have been scholars and musicologists reviving Baroque music, and especially the most revered composers like Handel and Bach. So, for instance, Bach, I think some of his works, they were resurrected. Mendelssohn, I think, did the whole Bach. Was it the St. John Passion, St. Matthew? I think back in the 19th century, when that was 100 years ago, Bach was considered old-fashioned, but Mendelssohn really studied. So some of these romantic composers did study Bach. And so, like learn counterpoint.
Interpreted him really, and gave him a romantic spin. Sergeant Bilko in the comments says it sounds like jazz, sort of so like Baroque freestyling.
Yes, actually, there's a lot of commonalities in between. I mean, like people are like jazz is like you learn this pattern and you can. Is that wine?
That's wine. It's a habit on this show. I'm sorry.
That's great. I need coffee. So, but anyway, So there's some parallels, and I would say music. There's parallels between music for sure. Any kind of genre. Yes.
Now, you've been talking about sort of there was no fixed. There was a fixed certain pattern, and then you were free to interpret on top of that. And your instrument actually. The harpsichord. This is where I want to get your idea on this. Is that it's basso continuo, which is it's the bass line. It's you're doing the bass, right? And all the other instruments are like going on top and doing their jazz. So when you're playing, are you just laying down the beat, as it were, or are you free to sort of do your own thing on the harpsichord?
Yeah, so yes, I kind of do. That's back off a little bit to basso continuo. So basso continuo is this continuous bass line. Well, not continuous like literally, but like you always have have something that's driving. So we see kind of more like classical and post-classical era, people really focus on the top line. But Baroque music, it's so heavy. It's so rooted in the bass. Like everything comes from the bass. This is for, we call that pluckers. So meaning anything that plucks. So it can be a harpsichord, it can be a harp, it can be a lute or guitar that just they play similar things. So put in modern context, we're kind of like, we're playing chords, but we're playing chords. Like how, you know, if you have a guitar, if you have a song now, like nowadays pop songs, they just have the melody line and then they give you kind of what the chord it is. But except we get a bass line and then they give you numbers. So the numbers tell you the quality of the chord. So I kind of learn a little bit of pattern. You know, with different chords, how my hand, it's almost half muscle memory. Like I look at the chord and then my hand goes into that position and I kind of start, you know, ornamenting. So now it's, you know, but at the same time you have to think, oh, well, this is, you know, a unstable chord is about to resolve. So I might play the chord differently based on what the quality of the chord is.
Could you sort of give us a demonstration of that? Is that possible?
Yes. Let me see. Sorry, I got it. This is. Can you see? No, you can't see it.
Hang on, I'll just pop you back onto the main screen. So.
So I don't really have. You can't see the keyboard, but I don't really have score right now. But I'm just thinking. I'm going to do a really easy improvisation. And I took off my headphones so I can really hear you right now. But something called a descending tetrachord. So it's literally 4 notes. So this is a very common kind of pattern, and it happens a lot in Baroque music. Like sometimes they even have a specific connotation depending on what kind of improvisation. So I can do, and it goes on.
So the one oh yeah, I can hear you now. So the one hand was doing the bass line, as it were, and the other was then producing the chords on top.
Yes. Sorry, you couldn't hear, but you know, there was no music. I was improvising. So that's a very common kind of continuous bass line, and we call that a lament or something. Like people are usually crying, or
well, it sounded fairly sad.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Right. So I just chose it because it happens a lot. And then recently I played a concert where this bass line happens 68 times. 68 times before something changes. So like I'm very well versed in improvising over this kind of bass line, because you just start playing and then you just learn. Oh, that was half pattern, half, I don't know, like I already kind of wrote it because I'm so familiar with this bass line. Yeah.
I mean that sounds. I mean, 68 times before it changed sounds a lot like modern composition.
Yes.
I'm thinking of Continuum here. I haven't. Which is a modern piece by I can't remember what nationality.
Ligeti.
Yeah.
Hungarian.
Hungarian. Yes, I watched those out of duty. Yes, I mean, and somebody in the comments a bit earlier was saying, was it Bilko was saying? What was he saying? Have her play. What was it? Play The Black Page by Frank Zappa. So I mean, yes, Frank Zappa was into all kinds of minimalist stuff as well. So,
I see.
Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, the harpsichord. Like you were telling me, messaging before, you're not quite familiar with harpsichord in pop music, but
yeah,
I mean, it came back in the 60s,
Yes.
particularly. It was very heavily used in just general pop as a background instrument. But I mean, obviously people like Ligeti and others are using it more, and using it, the specific nature of it.
Yes.
Not because of it requires jazz-like interpretation. So I'm assuming that's why it's kind of popular in that. Do any of your students say, hey, I'd like to learn it like this, or do you teach them that, or is it all strictly 17th and 18th century stuff that you teach them?
I have been pretty just orthodox and just go through the motion. Because I haven't had anyone that's really super advanced and wanted to do something that's more in the 20th century era. And a lot of people just say they want to play Bach. They want to play Bach, right? A lot of them, like even my piano students, they want to learn how to play Bach, quote unquote, correctly on the piano. We're playing in a way that makes sense stylistically and sounds good on the piano, because it's been a battle. Like, you didn't see that, but the harpsichord doesn't have pedal. So when I was playing my introduction, I didn't use any pedal. So if it requires a very different kind of technique. And if you play on the piano without using any pedal, some people believe that play Bach without pedals on the piano, but it sounds really dry. It just doesn't. It just sounds really dry. It doesn't sound as good. And
I don't know.
And
I'm just sorry. I'm trying to think of oh God, I forgot. Glenn Gould. Did he use pedals when he plays his Bach? I can't remember.
I can't remember, but Glenn Gould is in his own world. Like he has his own school of interpretation. No, I admire Glenn Gould, but I will not play the same way as he does.
So you don't sit there humming while you're playing your harpsichord.
No. I mean, I still want audience, and you can do that when you're like him, and people will come see you. But I definitely have my own flair, like my own way of playing, but I don't I hum a little, I breathe. People can hear me breathing, but I don't hum along. So yes.
I mean, do you have any particular favorites? Because I've gone through, by the way, audience, Joyce does have a YouTube channel. And I did link it in the advert. So if you want to listen to any of the pieces, sort of the composers, because there's quite a wide variety. I shall do. I shall change my background, and I'll have to go here. It could randomly appear I could have Taiwan behind me any moment now. There we go. There's God, that's there's botanical gardens. But I mean, if I go to my playlist, I can bring up some composers. Not literally, but where are we? Here we go.
You can play continuo.
There we are. We've got Bach, we've got Corelli, we've got Scarlatti, we've got Vivaldi, we've got Couperin, and we've got Rameau. And those were the only ones I was like 5 minutes before we started. I was like sticking these together.
Oh, wow, cool.
So, I mean, do you have any particular favorites? I mean, you've mentioned Bach, but I mean, there are others. And on your YouTube, you have quite a few, like Lully.
Yes. So I would say my favorite is actually in 17th century Italian music. But this is, that's a little bit beyond the scope of today's presentation. But I don't have an Italian harpsichord.
Oh, you need an Italian one to do.
I can play it, but it just doesn't give you the same kind of.
It's lighter.
Like so this is a French double. You see there are two keyboards, and the French harpsichord are kind of the extreme from the Italian. They're the total opposite. So if you think about Baroque music, it's like Italian or French, and everything else is kind of in between, like English and German. And the French harpsichord are very kind of more mellow, and they have sustained sound, and it's very good for playing lower bass. Like if I like in my introduction, for the advertisement, I play this very beautiful piece by Couperin. So yes, I would say Couperin is one of my favorites as well. Yeah. So, but if you play the Italian music on this, you lose all that sparkle. You don't have that kind of
too
drive.
heavy.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, like I see Italian music as at least the ones I like to play are very energetic and very dynamic. And then it's like, putting a young man sewing a I don't know, an old lady, and then I see it like
Okay.
French instruments kind of like old lady. It's like, yeah, you gotta be gentle, you gotta be like very polite, you gotta be slow, and then Italian is just like this. Very fast. I love playing fast music, and then on the Italian harpsichord, it's great. I actually have a recorded video on YouTube. It's not from my channel. It's called Early Music America. I was one of their soloists last year, and they recorded, and that was probably the best Italian harpsichord I've ever played. So that's if someone wants to go check it out. Like
Early Music America.
Yes, if you put Early Music America, Joyce Chen, or EMA, that should come up. So that's a very good representation. So that's probably my favorite. But I also really love Couperin and Bach. But I probably play more Couperin now because the danger of playing Bach is, so many people play Bach, and everyone has their own interpretation. So yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, it's good. I came across all these people. I started to get into classical music when I was about 15. I mean, in the sense of just I enjoyed it. I didn't sort of get into it and practice it or anything. And I started off with the romantic sort of with Holst and then quickly found that was rather too film music and very gushy and emotional. And then I discovered Bach and then the other sort of Baroque composers, and found that sort of more. I mean, you say you played the Italian one with lots of passion and everything, but I find the Baroque music quite calming in comparison. It doesn't play on your emotions in the way that sweeping romantic mush does.
Oh wow, you actually, I don't know whether you did this research on me too, but that's one of my research topics is like emotions and music. So I would say romantic music is expressive in the sense that it's very direct. It's very also the fact that we know the idiom. We know when composer does this, where we hear that in film music. Film used a lot of romantic music, like classical music, as kind of foreshadowing what's happening, reflecting what the protagonists, their emotions, internal emotions. But Baroque music is also very emotional because Baroque music actually, in that period, people believe that music has the power of moving the passions, and passions meaning kind of broadly emotions, but it's slightly different. Like they talk about passion as kind of from an external thing into an internal. So they believe, the music can carry this kind of drive, this kind of passion. And if, they use, rhetorical devices in composition and try to, change someone's emotion into whatever the action is in the music.
I was reading something in my sort of research about a chap in the 17th century who described sort of using two. He'd witnessed somebody, a Baroque singer, singing a song in a particular tone, and the person in the audience reacted violently, and then they changed it to a more mellow song, and the person calmed down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something with and then that's something we're still all working on as Baroque musicians, is how to communicate with the audience, because they're like, oh, it sounds the same, or it's not as free or as expressive compared to romantic music. But I'm like, this is like kind of like speaking a different language. People are easily connected with popular music now because they hear all the time. They have the same kind of cultural kind of musical syntax. They understand it, and they're 1 degree removed or 2 degrees removed from mainstream classical music. And then Baroque music is this even one more degree or two more degrees removed. So people are like, they just don't understand. So I would say it's not the fact that Baroque music is not expressive, where it's not as emotional. It is, but in a very different way that we don't necessarily, not everyone understands, and that's our job. And me as a musicologist try to educate people and say, this is why, or this is, we have to, kind of be informed before we can appreciate. Yeah.
Well, here, let's just switch over now. I mean, I'll go back. We're back to harpsichords, and we've got harpsichords going on here. I'll just switch back if I press this, and then we'll go back to Taipei.
Great.
Taiwan. I mean, because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was the uptake of Western classical music in Taiwan, because you're from Taiwan, and you've come to, but you studied Western music in the West.
Yes.
But it's big. I was reading up about it. It only became really popular in Taiwan after World War II. Would you agree?
Yes. And this is a very interesting phenomenon. I was thinking about it last night, and then I can give you we need a little bit history about how it even got there, like how Western music was transmitted. So so Taiwan was, this little island, now it has a very complex kind of political and cultural identity right now. And I would say we were occupied. So it was just an island with not much going on. They have their own indigenous people living there for 100, centuries. And it was the Dutch and the Spanish both occupied Taiwan in the 17th century.
That's right.
So, but there was, and this is part of my research, and because not many people know about the history, they don't really know about history of Taiwan, let alone history of, history of music in Taiwan. And so at the time, the kind of Western music we have, they were the Western missionaries that were teaching the indigenous people. So some of the indigenous people, they do have stuff from back then. They were influenced by the Western music, but mostly in a sacred music context. And then later on, Taiwan was kind of abandoned until, it was sort of managed by the Qing dynasty, kind of, but they were not paying much attention to us
until 1895.
Yes, 1895. Then we were, we were one of the colony of the Japanese government, and so has to do with Japan. So the Japanese, I think it was after the Meiji Restoration. So in mid 19th century, they realized, oh, wow, they really have a lot to learn from the West. And that's also when a lot of Western music, they were transmitted to Japan. So under the Japanese government, in Taiwan, they set up some schools and for music and for everything. So the exceptional students in Taiwan at the time, so late 19th century, early 20th century until Second World War, so 1945, the exceptional students were sent to Japan to learn Western music.
Okay, right.
So isn't that interesting? I actually, before I started studying out, I just kind of took it as the same phenomenon as other Chinese-speaking country, but it actually has a very different kind of
I didn't realize
relationship.
I didn't realize that, I knew Japan had occupied it from 1895 to 1945, but I didn't realize that Taiwanese musicians had gone to Japan to study and then come back.
So they have the teachers from Japan that learn Western, so it's like two layers of cultural imperialism. It's what it's like the Japanese, they're like pro the Western music, and then in Taiwan people are like, oh, the better ones can get to learn Western music, but they're like 2 degrees removed. So this is very interesting. And then so after the Japanese government, they went back and we had the exile from mainland China in 1949, and so Western music, that's how it started kind of in Taiwan. We have all these students that went to Japan, studied, brought back Western music, and they kind of, they were really growing this community. And and really they just did a little bit more. And I would say, I think it was in the 1970s and 80s, it was really blooming, like it was really blossoming. And also with the fact that when Kuomintang, the Chinese nationalists exile, when they came to Taiwan, they have something called the martial law, meaning
yes, until 1987.
Yes, so that was, well, it wasn't like a switch like that. It was like very, very bad, and then got a little bit better, got better until 1987. It was, it was gone. But during that period, at least in the beginning, they were really controlling, it's censorship. So what you talk about, what you play, what you listen to, what you see on the TV, they're all controlled. So I would say there's, at least from what I've read so far, there's just not very much artistic kind of freedom or any kind of expression. There's not much output at the time. But really, it was later on in the 70s and 80s. There were music schools, and there are also like specialty school. And those are the things I can study from afar, but I was never in that context. I learned music. I studied Western classical music as I was growing up as a hobby, and I really love it. But some people that came to the West, they actually went to special music school. So meaning from grade 1, they have very intensive training on top of everything else. I've never been through that program, but I've studied with people that's been through the program and taught me everything I really needed to know. So I would say that's definitely one. And and the fact that I think there's just this ideology in Chinese speaking countries, so Taiwan included, if you can do well with Western music, you can do well academically. And this is why it's really popular. People send their children to studio to learn piano or violin and do well. But I would say majority of them don't actually want their children to have a career in music. They just want them to do well. And then it's the same in Western context. I think a lot of people just think, oh, if you can do well in music, it helps with your brain development or something about it. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's not a question of whether you're passionate about it. You've got to do it. You've got to practice your piano. Go and practice your piano.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what as it were turned you on to Western classical music? I mean, because you had all the pop music going on and everything. So what made you switch?
I never really switched. I just grew up playing this, and
Well, it's difficult to imagine. Difficult to imagine a young girl turning on like getting a CD of Bach and dancing to it or something. How did it happen?
No, oh well, it's like a series of push and pull. I mean, I was a pretty clever kid, and get away with a lot of things. I really.
Your mother's probably watching this.
I mean, sorry. I mean, I got away, like not practicing and then being okay, in my lessons, and but then like I was kind of like, it's boring. I don't want to do the drills. I don't want to do this exercise. It's boring. I just want to play these pieces, and But at one point, and then I was like, I don't want to go to piano lessons. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do violin lessons. But then secretly, I like it. I just hate the formality. I hate the fact that I was every week, once a week for this much time, and I have to practice. As a kid, you're not disciplined. So it's really just a long journey. And I was like, okay, not sure. And then at one point, I wanted to quit. But then I don't know if you probably didn't read this, but I came to the West originally to study engineering at
you have
UC
a BSc.
Berkeley. So I studied engineering, but it was in engineering I realized, like I ended up spending. It's really interesting in college. I have a minor in music. And I major in engineering, but I joke about I'm actually minoring in engineering, but majoring in music, because I spend more time in the music department than in engineering. Like I did the minimum work to pass. So it was really in college, and I was a young hippie, and said, I want to do something different. So it was the rebellious mind said, you should go for your passion. So I decided to study harpsichord instead.
Ah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and what turned you on to harpsichord as opposed to any other instrument?
That's a very loaded question. It was, oh my God. Okay. So it has to do with the fact that I was saying I was, lazy. I was not practicing. I think with the piano, I love the piano. And I love music. But with the piano, it's just like, it's like the best friend you have, but not enough for you to marry. I don't know. It was just like I love it, but I was like, I'm just not willing to sacrifice my life. Like, I love the piano, but I'm just not willing to take that step. And then like the harpsichord is the person that you meet. It was like Mr. Right, whatever. And it appeared. I was like, oh wow, this is it. Okay, I can do everything. So sorry, that's a little bit spin, but this is what happened. I literally was blown away when I played the harpsichord. I said, oh, this makes sense. Like it just makes sense. Like I just knew. And when I play the Bach, like what I was saying, playing Bach on the piano, probably works for a lot of people, but for me, it was just like there was a tiny bit of dissatisfaction. I just said, well, it just no matter how I play it, it just doesn't feel quite right. And then when I play on the harpsichord, I was like, oh, okay, it's natural. I don't have to try so hard.
It was written for the harpsichord,
yes, it was written for a harpsichord, and this is why when it's almost you have to treat it as a transcription for the piano. This is because the way Bach wrote it was like the piano didn't exist. Well, actually, a kind of a prototype of piano existed, but Bach wasn't writing for the piano. So yeah, it just makes sense. And I played the harpsichord. I said, oh wow, this is what I've been looking for, and it just clicked, and I decided I was gonna do it. Yeah.
Well, I think that would be an excellent opportunity now for you if you would like to do a longer piece. We could actually play out. Yeah, with I mean, we've got about 8 minutes left. I don't know. I say longer piece, but I mean slightly longer than we had before. But I mean, could you play us out with something that you really
sure
that you're sort of fired up about at the moment, for example?
I was gonna play. I can play the piece that I play for the introduction, the whole thing.
You mean the Bach piece?
The Couperin. No, the Couperin.
The Couperin piece for the advert. You mean? Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now you get to hear the whole thing, because this is one of my. Sorry, let me find it. It's one of my favorite pieces. It just really. It's this is Couperin writing for his colleague. I mean, it sounds like a love song, but someone actually.
But you're in love with the harpsichord, so I mean. Yeah.
Yes, right. So harpsichord is my colleague. But let me just try to adjust this.
Yes, I want to see you play.
Position again. Sorry.
Yeah, that looks good.
Is this better?
I'll put you on the main screen now. I think we can see you. Yes, we can see you now. You're going to have to lose your headphones, so we'll go quiet for a moment. But
sure.
This is what's the before you go? Can you give us the title, the name of the piece?
Oh, so this is a character piece by François Couperin. It's called La Garnier. Garnier is the person that he was working with. So it, like whatever is in between. It's his dedication.
Okay.
For his colleague. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Hello.
Ray! That was fantastic.
Thank you.
It is. I mean, I posted in the comments that it is quite emotional when you actually do listen to it. When you know the context, for example.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Okay, great.
No, it's just somebody messaged me on Facebook. Next week's guest.
Great.
No, that was wonderful. I mean,
Thank you.
I do like Couperin. I do like that. I like Bach, but I do like the sort of the earlier Baroque.
Yes.
I'm only instrumental, really. I'm not particularly fond of choral, Baroque.
Oh,
choral
really?
Music. No, choral music. Any choral music really just doesn't do it for me, actually. So if it comes on when I'm listening to classical radio, I have 3 classical radio stations tuned in, and so when choral music comes on, I switch to the next station. Just a foible. Yeah. You got applause emojis from Sergeant Bilko and thumbs up emojis from Joyce from Holland. Right.
Thank you.
Also,
great.
No, from Ellen. Sorry, she says, thumbs up, Joyce. That's right, Ellen.
Yay,
sorry.
Thank you.
Yes,
I guess you couldn't see that, but at the end, I actually went up to the upper register. Like I was playing on the lower register, and I went up, so the sound was slightly different. But maybe you couldn't tell that from the audio.
We're kind of like higher notes, yeah, sort of.
Yes.
So I mean, is that why is there actually just technically why are there 2 levels?
Yeah, I guess we never went there. So sorry. So the lower level. So each keyboard is connected with one set of 8-foot string, meaning the strings are playing at its original pitch. So I can play them, and they have different timbre because just the way where it's being plucked, so it sounds slightly different. But I can also engage, so I can push this upper keyboard in, that will engage, and then if I play on the, can you see both are playing?
You can play the top. That's cool.
So then you instantly have louder sounds. So that's also one way of us creating louder sounds, by coupling the keyboards. And then there's something called 4-foot. Right now it's not very in tune because of the weather, but that produces a brighter sound if you want to put on top of everything. So what I did with the piece was I was playing on the lower keyboard, and it has a different sound. And sometimes you can couple both and play this piece too, but I really like a lighter touch. And then you move up to the to the top when you see appropriate. And then what happened was that was a little kind of coda kind of like the end closing phrase. I just want to have a different kind of tone.
So you're saving up for an Italian harpsichord.
Well, it's in the mix. I just need a little bit more. I need to save up.
You need to do a few more side hustles,
Oh yeah, no, get more students, and hopefully in the near future I will have an Italian harpsichord. Hopefully. Cool. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Are you? Big question, because this is YouTube, and my viewers are all like watch YouTube, and so are you going to upload any new videos?
Yes, I was supposed to. I mean, I think the last video I uploaded was like last March, and I was like, I'll be having new videos every month, and then my life took over.
Well, yes.
So I actually do have a lot of videos. It was just the editing. It takes a long time, and I really and then so I'm fine recording, but it's the editing that takes usually. Last time I did, I spent several days during winter, and then was just like kind of like it's unedited. My recordings unedited, but it was the fact that I have to go through recordings and listen and whether they sound nice or not. So sometimes the recording can take, I don't know, 2 days for one piece, just to get the, perfectly correct, and then the way I want it. And then, I'm not very fast with, technology. As you see in the beginning, I had problem getting on. So
Yeah.
I'm not very good with technology, and so usually editing just takes so long, and I'm lazy. I really should hire someone to do it for me.
Well, just have a word with Joe Shu. He can.
Oh yes. Yeah, so Joshu is my colleague at Princeton, and that's
right.
Yeah.
Is he a colleague? I thought just thought it was you were friends, but your colleagues as well. No,
Yeah.
I didn't
Oh
know.
wow, you didn't realize? Yeah,
No.
he's new. He's his first year at Princeton.
But you're studying harpsichord, and he's studying musical comedy, as far as I understand.
Well, the name of our degree is called musicology.
Okay,
so
right.
Historical musicology, you can do whatever you want within the framework. So I'm the more traditional track, I guess, and Joshu is his
musical comedy track.
Yeah, I think he's also doing something else. I don't know, like Japanese music as well. And
he is a gagaku specialist.
Yes.
When he was on the show, yes, we had musical shows sometimes, and
Yes.
So he was on there doing gagaku, and I was enlightening everybody and myself about that area.
Great.
And now we're all enlightened about harpsichord music and the Baroque, I hope,
yes.
Audience. And I see somebody else has just joined. I'm terribly sorry, person who have just joined, but it has been an hour.
Yes.
And, Joyce has got to have her breakfast.
And coffee, yes.
And coffee, yes.
Yes.
And I would like to thank her very much for taking the time out to join me and informing us all about Baroque music. And I could just ask her to play us out.
Huh?
Well, play us out over the show. You're sort of like the end theme or something.
End theme.
Yeah.
Whoa. So okay, sure. And then you would disconnect me.
And now I'll
disconnect.
Well, I will end the broadcast. You and I will talk a little bit further, but I shall end the broadcast after you've played us out. Okay?
So meaning I have to play a complete piece?
No. Just a coda.
Sure. I'm gonna play something different then.
Okay.
But cut me out after maybe 20 seconds, so I don't embarrass myself.
Okay. Well,
I haven't practiced this piece.
Right. While Joyce sets up, and we've got 20 seconds. Next week, my guest has messaged me. Next week we'll be having a